Imagine waking up one morning to a world where the oceans no longer exist. No waves, no vast blue horizons, no salty winds. The seas that once covered more than 70% of Earth's surface have vanished overnight. What would happen to our planet, to life, and to humanity itself? At first, the disappearance of the oceans would cause an immediate ecological collapse. Oceans regulate Earth's climate by absorbing heat and distributing it across the globe through powerful currents. Without them, temperatures would become extreme. Days would be unbearably hot, nights freezing cold. Seasons would lose their balance, and many regions would become completely uninhabitable. The water cycle would collapse instantly. Oceans are the primary source of evaporation, which forms clouds and produces rain. Without oceans, clouds would gradually disappear, rainfall would stop, and rivers and lakes would dry up. Agriculture would fail within weeks. Crops would wither, soil would turn to dust, and global famine would begin. Humanity would realize that food security was never in its own hands. Marine life would vanish immediately. Trillions of creatures, from microscopic plankton to the largest whales, would die in an instant. This would not only be an environmental tragedy, but also the destruction of the foundation of Earth's food chain. Many land animals depend indirectly on the oceans for survival. When the base collapses, everything above it follows. Oxygen levels would begin to drop. Most people believe forests are the primary producers of oxygen, but a large portion of the oxygen we breathe comes from phytoplankton in the oceans. With their disappearance, oxygen production would drastically decline. Breathing itself would slowly become more difficult for every living being on Earth. The atmosphere would also change dramatically. Oceans store massive amounts of carbon dioxide. Without them, CO2 levels would rise uncontrollably, accelerating climate chaos. Toxic gases trapped under the seabed could be released, poisoning the air. Earth would begin to resemble a dead planet rather than a living home. Human civilization would collapse rapidly. Coastal cities, where much of the world's population lives, would become wastelands of salt and cracked earth. Global trade would stop, as most transportation depends on sea routes. Economies would fall apart, governments would lose control, and chaos would spread across nations. Fresh water would become the most valuable resource on Earth. Wars would no longer be fought over oil or land, but over a single drop of water. Billions of people would migrate in search of survival. Social order would disappear, and humanity would face its weakest moment in history. At that point, science would be silent. Technology would be useless. No invention, no machine, no artificial system could replace the oceans or restore the balance of the planet. Humanity would finally be forced to admit a truth it often ignores. This world was never under human control. In Islam, water is described as the foundation of all life. The Qur'an states, "And we made from water every living thing." Surah Al-Anbiya 30. The oceans are not random. Their depth, their boundaries, their salt balance, and their role in sustaining life exist by Allah's command and measure. Another verse reminds us, "Indeed, we have created everything according to a precise measure." Surah Al-Qamar 49. If Allah were to will it, the seas could vanish in a moment. And if that were to happen, humanity would have no power to stop it. The oceans stand as a silent but overwhelming proof of Allah's mercy. Their existence is a blessing. Their absence would be a warning. Allah says in the Qur'an, "Say, have you considered? If your water were to sink into the earth, then who could bring you flowing water?" Surah Al-Mulk, verse 1. This verse alone answers the question. No one but Allah. the drying of the oceans would not just be a physical disaster. It would be a spiritual awakening. Humanity would finally understand that survival is not guaranteed by strength, wealth, or intelligence, but by the will of Allah alone. If the oceans dried up in a single night, the world would not merely lose water, it would lose balance, life, and hope. The seas we take for granted today exist only because Allah allows them to exist. Their waves glorify Him, their depths obey Him, and their existence serves His wisdom. The real danger is not the oceans disappearing, but humanity forgetting its Creator while they still exist. This world is temporary. This power is not ours. This balance is not accidental. The owner of the oceans, the earth, and the heavens is Allah, and He is capable of all things.